It was Halloween night in Briar Hollow, and trick-or-treaters filled the streets. But as midnight approached, a blood-red moon rose, casting an eerie glow over the town. Unbeknownst to the townspeople, 5 witches gathered on the outskirts, led by the powerful Bellatrix. They chanted an ancient spell, and soon the dead began to rise from the graveyard. One by one, the dead knocked on doors, and the unsuspecting townspeople, thinking it was more trick-or-treaters, opened them. Chaos erupted as the living dead dragged them from their homes, and the town descended into terror. At the edge of town, Edgar, an old recluse, sensed the evil stirring. He had spent years preparing for this night, collecting old books and artifacts, but now that the dead were at his door, he wasn't sure his plan would work. The knock came, slow and deliberate. Edgar's hand trembled as he opened the door, revealing the rotting figures of the undead, their hollow eyes staring hungrily at him. Without a word, Edgar backed up, leading the dead inside, straight to his small, dimly lit parlor. He muttered an incantation, his voice shaking, as he pulled a large black candle from his shelf and placed it on the table. The dead hesitated, their movements slowing, but they kept advancing, skeletal hands reaching for him. "Come on," Edgar whispered to himself, lighting the candle. But the flame flickered weakly, barely illuminating the room. The dead grew closer, their breath like cold wind on his neck. Desperate, Edgar raised his hand over the candle and whispered a final word in the language of the old world. The flame suddenly roared to life, growing impossibly tall, casting long, twisted shadows on the walls. The undead froze in place, their eyes locking on the light as if it held them captive. But they didn't turn to dust. They didn't crumble. Instead, they stood, motionless, surrounding Edgar as if awaiting further command. The air was thick with tension, the silence oppressive. Suddenly, the door blew open, and Bellatrix flew in on her broom, her eyes blazing with fury. She raised her hand to break Edgar's spell, but he was quicker. With one swift motion, he plunged his hand into the flame, the fire consuming it. But instead of pain, Edgar felt a surge of power. A shock wave erupted from the candle, sending Bellatrix crashing into the wall. The undead collapsed, their bodies falling into piles of bone and ash, but Bellatrix rose again, furious. "You think this is over, old man?" she hissed. "This was just the beginning." With a final chilling laugh, she vanished into a swirl of smoke, leaving the town quiet once more. Edgar collapsed into his chair, exhausted but alive. The dead were gone for now. But as he stared at the smoldering candle, a quiet knock came at his door. Startled, he opened it to find a small child in a witch's costume, her eyes glowing faintly red. "Trick or treat," she whispered with a smile.